Can the Nike Vaporfly 4 do it over the longer distances? The Vaporfly 1 and 2 were huge favourites of mine and very popular. The Vaporfly 3, for me, got mushier as the runs went on and was never a good contender for longer distances. Today's mission is to cover at least 14 miles and throw in some faster work to really push the Vaporfly 4 and see what it's made of. So let's get straight into this long run test. So as I get going on the run, I wanted to make sure I started it well by feeling fueled and hydrated, so I had decent breakfast along with a pre-run gel and a small bit of drink mix before getting things underway. The session I did in the Vaporfly 4 was a really hot day and I didn't want to judge the shoe based off that one run, so although today was meant to be warm, getting out a bit earlier and picking a route that will have a bit more shade meant that I'd be able to judge it a bit more fairly. So here we go, a long run test, Nike Vaporfly 4. What have we got on the cards today? Well, I'm doing a 25-minute steady warm-up and then I'm going to roll in to 10 by 3 minutes at a tempo effort. Realistically, pace-wise, they'll come out somewhere between marathon and half marathon pace, but I'm going to do them up on the rollers behind me. Sort of a mix of concrete tarmac and some very light forest trail as per where I do all of those type of workouts, and that's going to have 90 seconds easy jog recovery in between, and then we'll wrap it up with a 20-minute moderate back home. And the goal for today's run is to find out if they bottom out like the Vaporfly 3 did for me. I'm going to be honest, straight away, I wasn't blown away by them in the test. I've never had such conflicting feelings towards a shoe. The fit is sublime. The comfort is brilliant. I love the laces. There's lots of little things I really enjoy about this shoe, but they just do not give you back what you expect from a super shoe. There is limited propulsion going on. The carbon plate feels non-existent almost. I can kind of feel it there if I'm honest, but it's not stiff and rigid like the previous ones. It just, I don't know, I'm not holding out much hope for this. We've got 3 minutes left until we roll into this tempo. Let's see if we can pick up the pace. Okay, so as we crest this hill, 3, 2, 1, perfect. I'm just going to verbally dump every time I think of something that's going on with these shoes. First thing, flying down this hill at 540 per mile pace. I feel like I'm bottoming out at the front. I feel like my toes are basically hitting the floor. Very weird sensation, not used to that in a Vaporfly. That's the first thing. Right, 2 out of the 10 done. Very underwhelming, really not giving me a lot back. As I said, so conflicted. I really enjoy this shoe. I really love how comfortable it is. But in terms of super shoes, having paid the price that I have for them, if I was to categorise it within all my super shoes that I've ever purchased, this could be one of the worst in terms of what I get back from the shoe. The carbon plate might as well not be there from what I'm feeling, and don't forget, I'm a bigger runner, around 90 kilos. I'm 6'6", so please take that into consideration. For you shorter runners, maybe around 60, 70 kilos, you might have a different experience, and I think that's really important to share in the comments if you do. But for me, as a bigger runner, this is a no-no. Okay, 4 done. In terms of the run itself, it's going well. I feel well this morning. I'm fueling well out here now. Just again, practicing fueling as much as I can for a potential autumn marathon. Get the stomach used to it now and just get prepared. So I'm going back and forth along here from reps 3, 4, 5 and 6, just to get a bit of consistency rather than plummet off a cliff down that way and have to come up a big hill. I might do 7 and 8 as well, so that I avoid the massive hill at the end, and try and just get some consistency on these tempo efforts. So far, it's all right. Okay, 5 and 6 done. Taking a little bit of fuel. We're finding a bit of a groove now. Locking into the 540s, and that one was 539, but 540s is solid. I'm feeling good. I felt good today. I'd love a bit more from the shoes. I'm very aware that in between every 2 reps I could come on here and say something more negative about them. I don't want the video to become super downbeat, but I will say again, they are not giving me what I would expect. I feel like I'd rather be in the Evo SLs right now, and I am probably not going to consider these for Hereford next week. But having said that, they are still feeling as they did at the start. I don't know how many miles we're in at the moment. I'll check when we're done with the intervals. So let's get the next 2 done. Okay, so we are cutting this down nicely now. We've done number 9, 1 to go. Yeah, I will stand by what I said. They do well when you pick up the pace. Still not electric, but to be fair, this has been a good workout. What a place to finish, up a stonking great hill. So there we go, that was an impressive way to finish the workout, 525 and 524. The 9th rep was way more impressive because it had up and down in it. The 10th one was gently down, so it was nice to be able to progress the efforts through. Didn't think, honestly, that I was going to be able to do that, although I will say, and I said it at the beginning, I felt really good going into today. I feel good, I feel fit, I'm well fueled. And when I was stuck in those 550s at the start, I just thought, this is not going to be a good one, but we got going eventually. So in total, I'm going to get probably just over 15 miles done today, just gone through the half marathon mark in 1 hour 25. Heart rate is now very controlled, 147, back in a moderate zone. And I think overall, that was a really good workout. How do the shoes feel though? I'm going to be honest with you, as I said all the way through, I would be disappointed if I were you, if I purchased this shoe with my money, which I did, and was expecting something magical. You're not going to get anything magical with this shoe. It feels like a combination of the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 2, as I mentioned in the previous comparison video, and a bit of a buffed up Streak Fly version 1. So if you enjoyed that Streak Fly, the training shoe, you'll get a little bit more foam in this. A plate which I don't know if it does too much really. I'm sure it does, but that's really what you're going to get. I think the most untechnical thing I can say is that it just feels like slap, 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 and it's just unlike the Vaporfly 1 and 2. I'm just not getting any from the shoe, and interestingly I feel really good. My form is, it usually crumbles towards the end of the long run if you sat back a bit like this. I'm very up on my toes right now, and I have been for the whole run, which is great, and again I'm very grateful for that. But even so, it's basically, I think the long and short of it is, it doesn't reward you as much as other super shoes. Let's just leave it at that. I've been mightily impressed with how comfortable it is. I love a lot of the shoe. I love the way it locks you down, but I will finally say one more time with feeling, this is a super trainer, not a super shoe. Right, so there we go, back from the long run. Overall, the long run went pretty well, to be fair. As I said at the time, I felt pretty good cutting it down, quite surprised. I felt in good fitness, fueled well, was fueling on the run. Again, I'm just doing all this stuff to practice for a potential autumn marathon, but you're here for the shoes, and I just want to give you my final feedback on this. This will be the last video that I'll make on these for a while. I am keen to get these out with the streak flies as well for a workout, so maybe start in these and then slip on the streak flies at the end. So I might do that at some point, maybe over the next couple of weeks, but otherwise let's wrap up testing here. As you can see here, a couple of hitchhikers picked up in there. The other shoe also has the same, so that was a little bit frustrating. Of all the shoes I ever test that I have these sort of like cutouts in, or these gullies that run through the shoe, this is probably the one that's picked up the most hitchhikers, so that was interesting. But overall, yeah, it didn't do too badly. I stand exactly by what I said whilst I was out there. It's definitely not a super shoe that I would compare to the other ones. There are plenty of other better options out there. I really enjoyed the way that it feels. I really enjoyed the fit, the comfort, the lacing, all of that sort of stuff. All the little details they've done really well in this shoe. But I just feel they've missed a trick by bringing the stack height down. I think they've really nerfed it now by putting even more of a distinguishment between the Alpha Fly and the Streak Fly. And as I said whilst I was out there, I feel like the Streak Fly is really what they've kind of focused on changing this year. And that is a really exciting shoe. And I appreciate maybe innovation can't be thrown into all of their racing shoes, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with the Alpha Fly 4, because if that one has big changes and that one's really good, then it really shows that they've kind of lost touch with the Vaporfly, which is a shame, because I feel like they really need to start dropping this tagline here of the original super shoe. It might have been the one that burst onto the scene, but certainly now this would come bottom of the ranks if I was ever going to lace up any shoe for a race. So without me completely going to town on this shoe and telling you how I don't think it's as good and how it doesn't stack up, I will just be relatively positive about it, because as I said, it's actually quite an enjoyable shoe to run in. It's just a really expensive trainer, I think, is the best way to look at it. I described it in my shoe off video, or my versus comparison video, whatever you want to call it, to the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 2. I feel like that's exactly what it is, or it's a Streak Fly version 1 with a bit more midsole in there. It's an exciting trainer, but it's just an expensive one. And then of course, if you're never going to race in it, then what are you comparing it to? You're comparing it to something like the Evo SL, which obviously doesn't have a plate, or the Zoom Fly 6. And I will be honest with you, I tried Tim Gross's Zoom Fly 6 when I was in Bourton 10K. He bought some shoes for me to test, and I really enjoyed the Zoom Fly 6. It was really comfortable. So again, it kind of ticks that box of comfort and feeling good. But as I said, I really feel like they've nerfed it. It's definitely more universally friendly. It does, however, still do better when you pick up the pace. I was able to cut that tempo down to that sort of 5:20 range, and that's something that I haven't been able to do throughout this training block so far. I think, as I said, fitness is in a good place, and this shoe allowed me to do that. There are other shoes that might feel a little bit weighty, a little bit clunky, and so this one did well. So I'm not going to completely knock it. And I will say, towards the end of the run, I didn't really feel like the Zoom X had changed that much. It hadn't really gone like the Vaporfly 3 had, which ultimately is what this test was all about. I didn't feel like it had got worse over the run. My mind was kind of in a position where I was thinking to myself, this hasn't been the most enjoyable, and I might have rather have been in another shoe. But in those final couple of miles, I was trying to mentally lock into seeing how does this actually feel at this point in the run compared to at the beginning, and I don't think it had changed that much. So I think they fixed that in this shoe, but what you've got to remember is you don't feel like you're starting off with a whole heap of stack height in the shoe, because it does feel lower to the ground. Therefore, by the end of it, you don't feel like you've sunk in as much, because there's not as much to sink into, if that makes sense. So I feel at that stage it might be comparing apples and oranges. So to be honest with you, yeah, it didn't do too bad over the long run, but plenty of other shoes I'd rather have been in, and if I'm honest with you, I think the Evo SL is one of those. That's an absolute cracker. So there we go. Vaporfly 4 tested on all fronts. Now, I'm not going to test it on any easy runs or moderate runs because that's not what this shoe's about. We've done a speed session, we have done a long run test. Very happy with that now. We'll park it, and as I said, maybe in a week or two, I'll give this one and the Streak Flight a good run out in a longer session. That might be good to do. So I'll give that one a crack. And other than that, yeah, as I said, decent trainer, definitely not a good super shoe. And if you're curious what I was talking about with that comparison video and you missed the last one, check out this video up here where I stacked it up against the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 plus the other Vaporflies, and check out this video down here where I give you my first impressions. Again, if this is the first video you're tuning into and you want to hear my first thoughts after that first session, that video will answer those, and I'll see you guys over there.